enough space or resources to go around. The details are trivial and pointless. The reasons, as always, purely human ones. The Earth was nearly wiped clean of life. A great cleansing, an atomic spark struck by human hands, quickly raged out of control. Spears of nuclear fire rained from the skies. Continents were swallowed in flames and fell beneath the boiling oceans. Humanity was almost extinguished, their spirits becoming part of the background radiation that blanketed the Earth. A quiet darkness fell across the planet, lasting many years. Few survived the devastation. Some had been fortunate enough to reach safety, taking shelter in great underground vaults. When the great darkness passed, these vaults opened, and their inhabitants emerged to begin their lives again. One of the northern tribes claims they are descended from one such vault. They hold that their founder and ancestor, one known as the Vault Dweller, once saved the world from a great evil. According to their legend, this evil arose in the far south. It corrupted all it touched, twisting men inside, turning them into beasts. Only through the bravery of this Vault Dweller was the evil destroyed. But in so doing, he lost many of his friends and suffered greatly, sacrificing much of himself to save the world. When at last he returned to the home he had fought so hard to protect, he was cast out, exiled. In confronting that which they feared, he had become something else in their eyes, and no longer their champion. Forsaken by his people, he strode into the Wasteland. He traveled far to the north, until he came to the Great Canyons. There he founded a small village, Arroyo, where he lived out the rest of his years. And so, for a generation since its founding, Arroyo has lived in peace, its canyons sheltering it from the outside world. It is home. Your home. But the scars left by the war have not yet healed, and the Earth has not forgotten.
Hello, this is Blattymeow, and we are going to do a Let's Play roleplay of Fallout 2. This is part of my 1,000 subscriber special season event, and people voted, and I was pretty happy with how the votes went. And the winner, if you can't tell already, was Mr. Frogg. So, without further ado, let us create Mr. Frogg. Now, I already have a loaded profile for him, so I can do it quick, but I can explain kind of how he's gonna work out here. Now, Mr. Frogg is an older male. He's 35. That's actually, I'd make him older if I could, but he's a seasoned veteran of life, and as well as of Arroyo, the tribe he came in. Now, he is feared by most people in the village, yet the village doesn't cast him out because they believe he may be the descendant of the Vault Dweller. The Elder has a plan to exile him in a casual way by forcing him to go on a trial and telling him to go on a quest to save their tribe. Mr. Frogg uses this opportunity to escape from Arroyo, as he's unable to escape from the village due to the bridge guards would quickly dispatch him. He's a strong male, but he can only handle so much. He's very volatile and very chaotic, and the wrath that Arroyo is going to unleash on the Wasteland is unsurmountable. Now, as for the metagame, there will be no metagame. What Mr. Frogg knows is what I know, but I'm not going to waste countless episodes on trying to figure out something, because I do know this game. I have played it. It's been a while since I've really played it, so it's still going to be pretty fresh, but I do know how to go about things, so I know how to point Mr. Frogg in the right direction should he get a little lost. But for the most part, what Mr. Frogg knows and sees and learns about the world is what he is going to go and how I'm going to push him. This is going to be extremely casual, extremely verbose Let's Play due to the fact that it's role-playing nature. So I'm not afraid to be long-winded and take time, including this intro. So I hope people enjoy. If they don't, that's okay. I know I enjoy it. And once again, I have inspiration from doing this solely from a YouTuber of the name My Name Is Not Lily. Please check him out if you want to see what inspired Blatty to create something like this. This is my first role-playing Let's Play, first role-play in general, so I'm probably going to be a little terrible at it, but that doesn't matter. It's just fun. We're going to see what we can do here, and the bottom line, I just wanted to play Fallout 2 again. So, here we go. Mr. Frogg, male, long-haired, because I'm using the Killips Restoration Project, which basically fixes a boatload of bug fixes, and adds some unfinished areas and completes them. So a little bit more content. Strength, 8. The points only go to 10, so 10 is called heroic. You're like, you know, Hercules if you have 10 strength per se. So, strength 8, great. Basically, he knows how to hold his own. He could break your nose in a second. He can carry mass amounts of weights, and he's pretty resistant. Perception. The knowledge of being able to hear things, and it determines how fast you are in combat, because it's turn-based combat. It determines what your sequence is, and your ability to fire at long range and notice things that others may not. 6, which is a little higher than average. You know, he has heightened sentence, but he's not intelligent in the matter of being observant. He kind of if he sees something and he knows that he's going to kill it, he will try to kill it. He's not going to try to look around for weaknesses and such. Endurance, 10. Mr. Frogg is hardened. He can take bullet wounds, he can take knife stabs like the best of them, he can heal rather quickly. His rough nature all throughout his life has allowed him to be hardened and develop just calluses in every single body part you can imagine. Charisma, 1. His charm, his natural appeal to others, and he's hated in his own village of Arroyo. You can't imagine how hated he's going to be in out in the Wasteland when you know, the rest of the world lives. So it's going to be interesting. No one's going to want to follow his rule, and most people want to spit at his feet by just the sheer look of him. Sheer sight of him, I should say. Intelligence, 5. He has average intelligence. He's not an idiot. He's not a genius, and he's not really smart. He knows things. He knows not to stick his hand into a pile of goo. He knows not to tread into a deathclaw nest. But he also doesn't know how to work a computer or try to meander his way through a conversation and to be diplomatic in that nature. Agility, 8. He knows how to move. Being hardened, as we said, he knows how to invade and dodge and get the jump on his enemy. So he knows how to move away, and he knows how to run if need to, but Mr. Frogg usually doesn't run away. And finally, luck, a karma trait, 2. Not the absolute worst, but not the absolute best. Well, actually pretty damn bad. You can go one step lower, but I figured 1 luck, he has, you know, once in a while he won't trip down a cliff. Once in a while he'll make a nice route for himself, or find a penny or two in a bag. So, kind of a throwaway trait for Mr. Frogg's sake. Affects his critical chance, but he's not much finesse in his attacks, so no problem. So, his optional traits, which is something that kind of like defines his growing character, is fast shot. He doesn't have time to aim for a targeted attack. He's not precise. He lacks finesse. But he costs 1 last action point to use guns and throwing weapons, so he can actually shoot maybe 2 or 3 times in a round as opposed to 1. But he can't target at anybody. Not that he would. He ends to aim at someone and hope they fall down or die. Speaking of dying, the other trait, Bloody Mess. For some strange twist of fate, people around you die violently. You always see the worst way people can die. If that doesn't explain the definitive nature of Mr. Frogg, I don't know what would. Now, basically, he knows how to kill a person in the most grotesque manner, and you're going to see some pretty grotesque deaths. And it's just, there's nothing better I can think of for Mr. Frogg. Finally, the skills. 3 natural abilities he's obtained in his life. Now, there's a good many of them, as you can see. And for Mr. Frogg, although he doesn't know it yet, big guns. The operation and maintenance of really big guns. Miniguns, rocket launchers, flamethrowers, and such. Yes, further down the road, Mr. Frogg hopes to find some sort of weapons cache, an armory, and obtain really large guns to really lay waste to his foes. Second, melee weapons. He's practiced with sharpened spears and clubs through his time in the village, and he knows how to cave in a gecko's skull. And no, he's not a killer of little reptiles. Geckos in this game are radiated mutants. So once he gets his hands on some human-made melee weaponry, it's going to be some pretty rough housing. Throwing, finally, the last skill. Muscle-propelled ranged weapons such as throwing knives, spears, and grenades. Grenades are going to be the highlight. Mr. Frogg in that armory that he hopes to find explosives that he can toss and dispatch large amounts of enemies. At the same time, he knows how to throw spears from his village time, and he can pinpoint and toss throwing knives like the best of them. As you can see, everything else, like speech, he has 5%, pretty damn poor. So he's really just more of a battle-hardened maniac. So, without further ado, let us begin Fallout 2, Mr. Frogg.
Come in, Chosen One. There are things you must know. The village is dying. The signs are everywhere. Withering crops. Dying Brahmin. Sick children. There is hope, however. A slim hope that few know of. The old discs speak of an item called the Garden of Eden Creation Kit. It is said it can bring life to the Wasteland. This will be your quest, if you prove yourself worthy. For that proof, you must first journey to the Temple of Trials. If you survive, come back to me. We will talk more. Our life is in your hands, Chosen One. Prove yourself. Find the G.E.C.K. Be our salvation.
Okay. So, we're standing at the Temple of Trials, which is the village elder has forced us to endure in hopes that we can then leave the village peacefully. So, Mr. Frogg is kind of bored of this, but he's excited to see if he can completely just make a mockery of their Temple of Trials. He's not afraid. So, let us enter. You are in a dark, musty temple. The shadows seem to play tricks with your eyes, and you can hear the faint sound of movement. Probably the insectoid critters that plague the caverns of Arroyo. Oh, here we go. First combatant. Well, bring it on, little ant. Don't think Mr. Frogg's too afraid of you. Yeah, nice good punch in the abdomen. That's all you need. But let me equip his spear here, because he's probably a little bit more proficient with his spear due to his melee weapon proficiencies. No problem. 67%, I like the chances. One hit kill. Fantastic. Now, some interesting things about this game is that I don't have to fully focus myself into a role-playing with Mr. Frogg, as I am in a sense, the guided narrator of Mr. Frogg's adventure here. So, it's not really Mr. Frogg's mind that's coming through. It's me explaining what he's thinking as we go on. So, no, it's not afraid for me to also dispatch in typical Let's Play fashion and explain bits and pieces about the game and my experiences with it. Honestly, I always saw my brother, who actually may be known a little bit more now in the YouTube land as Carva73, who I always saw playing this game when I was little, and I remember him being in a real big fight in a big metropolis city that we'll find later, hopefully, depending on Mr. Frogg's route. And it was really cool and kind of gave a sense of like comfortability. It was like neat. Like everybody was in like this big casino and like having a gunfight, and everybody was taking turns. It was like really tactical and really appealing to me, even at my young age. And then I started playing this game, and from then on I've finished this game. I've beaten this game, I think about 4 times, different character sets. I have never played as an evil character, so this is actually a pretty good experience. So we're severing the tails of these scorpions in hopes that I can maybe pitch it to one of the idiotic village members of my tribe, you know, Mr. Frogg's tribe, to see if we can get some, maybe a little extra spare caps, because once in a while a greedy trader goes into Arroyo near the border and makes a couple trades with the stupid tribals, like maybe like shiny golden coins for a month's supply of Brahmin meat, which is not too unlikely for my Mr. Frogg's tribe to do, which is why he kind of despises his tribe even further. So, oh, he's poisoned. Well, that's no problem. Mr. Frogg's been poisoned many a times. His resistance to poisons is actually pretty strong, so not too worried about it. Now, one thing that's unavoidable is the whole existence of mouse clicking, especially with this Blue Yeti microphone. It's going to be pretty evident, and I really don't know how I can get rid of that, because sometimes I click as I'm talking, so it's not like I can go through the audio files and do that, and I'm not too really too concerned about it, considering. So let's give it a save before we forget. I'm just going to overwrite this Blattymeow save, call it to Mr. Frogg, and we're going to give a quick save slot down to number 3. Call it Mr. Frogg. Quick. And that's hopefully one of the few times you're going to see me save. I'm going to quick save pretty much from now on, and only do big saves when I get to a new town. So yeah, the mouse clicks are apparent, but you know, a cop-out and also a dash of honesty. It kind of shows that, you know, there's a person playing this game, and oh no, we're playing a game here. So a nice easy lockpick, no problem for Mr. Frogg. All he had to really do was just get his fingernail wedged into the side of the lock mechanism and pull upwards, so no problem there. Yeah, and the feeble attempts to spring traps to Mr. Frogg was really just completely pointless. One other thing I'd like to mention is that this game has been hands down the hardest game to prepare in terms of recording it. There was no way I could just jump into this and record this. First of all, Fraps does not work. Even through the searching, constant, I did maybe weeks or weeks of constant searching of how to get this in to record right. And I found that Camtasia Studio was my best bet. Even then, though, I had to get the resolution working right, and even when the resolution was working right, there was still some sort of clipping error with my desktop, and it just was a disaster. But finally, you know, and also the rendering was horrendous, because the way that this game is displayed, it's in 640 by 480 resolution. It just was completely a mess to get working, but we have got it working, and you know, that's all that matters. And hopefully this first trial run goes well. I've done so many test runs, it's unrealistic. So, but I wanted to make sure I got this thing working the way I wanted to. My standards are a little higher when it comes to recording things, so That's how it works. So I kind of want to investigate this kind of cool little chasm here. But apparently there's not too much about it. A lot of places in this game you can just randomly click on things and search at them, and it'll give a pretty detailed description, even if it's not important to the game at all, if it's just background setup. So, alright, so seemingly innocent pot sitting here has got to be something. One of those man-made plastic explosives, which is just actually a little bit of gecko saliva and some of the residue toxic goo in the hunting grounds put together with a couple formations of hardened clay, a few stages. Not very dependable in terms of misfiring or blowing up before you intend to detonate it. So Mr. Frogg's a little concerned by that. There's no lie to that. Antidote always looks like ketchup to me. Maybe it is ketchup. I don't know. I've never been poisoned. I've never tried to drink ketchup when I was poisoned. But the perception of Mr. Frogg is pretty heightened that he can actually step a second turn in front of the ants. Although sequence only matters the first go about the round, and then you don't get an extra turn from there on. Explosive well placed could destroy this door. Well, I better give it a save, and I think we'll set this explosive for, I think 30 seconds will give us enough time. Go ahead and drop it by the foot of the door and get out of the way. And hopefully this breaks down the door. Oh, so far so good. This has actually been pretty, it still exploded prematurely due to the, I wouldn't really say it's Mr. Frogg's explosive skills, although it could be, but more so the whole fact of the tribe's failure to properly put together an explosive. Although it's pretty impressive they got it working with gecko saliva and residue of toxic waste in general. I already have a few bites and bruises, but to Mr. Frogg that's almost a gain. He enjoys pain here and there. He's not a masochist, but boy, he's borderline close to it. I can tell you that, borderline close. He's just gonna let the poison run through his system. He thinks the more he gets poison in life, the more resistance he'll get to it, and so far, that has been true in his experiences. Man, poke that red scorpion straight into the abdomen there. And you can see the little, there's a little ticker going down, typical RPG style. This is an old school RPG, showing all the descriptions and events going on, like, you know, red scorpion missed, and you gain this much experience, and so on and so forth. So, so far so good. Liking Mr. Frogg's chances already. Although this is just, these aren't non-humans, and Mr. Frogg would rather decimate human life, such as his own. Not his own life, but humans, other humans. Also got the long hairstyle because he doesn't really care about grooming himself to help with his already totally great charisma, yeah. Alright, so, looking good here. This looks like to be the inner sanctum here of some sort. And, oh, there's our good friend Cameron. What does he want? Greetings, Mr. Frogg. I have the honor of being your final challenge. To continue in your quest, you must defeat me in unarmed combat. Shall we begin? Sure, let's party. Mr. Frogg has no problem punching someone's lights out. Let's do it. Equipment's going to be put out in the trunk, so it's going to be a fist fight. No problem. You missed all right there, Clint. I gotta hit in. Let us drink from the cup of battle. Well, that was easy. You have defeated me. You are worthy, chosen one. Oh, that was... If that was supposed to be the final challenge, then Mr. Frogg's not too intimidated by this pit of trial. So let's get all our stuff back. Equip one of our spears, and we'll put away our spears so we have, otherwise opening doors and containers causes extra animation frames, which is just a waste of time. So let's go get our reward. Okay, we have the legendary jumpsuit of supposedly my ancestor, the Vault Dweller. We're going to go report to the Elder and see if we can get maybe some rewards and pimp some coins from selling those red scorpion tails next time. So, thanks and see you later.